What's up guys, it's Marko from TechStream, and I have something pretty special for you guys today. I've spent the past few months deal hunting to find cheap but new PC parts to build the best $250 all-new parts gaming PC that I possibly could. And I was actually able to find some pretty great deals despite inflated GPU and RAM prices, which actually enabled me to build a computer that runs current games at pretty good settings. So without any further ado, let's dive right in. So the first part in this PC is the CPU. And there wasn't really much of a decision for this part. I picked up the Intel Pentium G4560 for this spot, as it gave me the best bang for the buck when I bought it for just $51.99 at Micro Center after a $5 coupon. The CPU pretty much stands alone right now in this price range, with 2 cores and 4 threads clocked at 3.5 GHz. It does feature integrated graphics, however for a gaming build like this, that obviously won't do. This CPU runs on Intel's Kaby Lake architecture on LGA 1151 sockets, meaning that it remains fairly new and fairly future-proof right now. And the CPU has been the obvious choice for builds like these for some time now, and that will most likely only change when the next line of Pentiums come out. Along with this CPU, you do get a stock Intel CPU cooler. Now, with such a tight budget, this is all that's justifiable for this build. However, it's not a great CPU cooler, and if you want to see lower temps, you could consider investing in a third-party cooler. With that said, this cooler does get the job done, so I went ahead and stuck with it for this build. The next part in this build is the motherboard. For this part, I found a great deal on the Asus Z170K motherboard, which is generally used in builds with much greater budgets. I was actually able to pick up this motherboard brand new from eBay for just $29.84 after a $30 rebate and a 5% discount with Ebates, which made this an amazing pick for this build. The motherboard supports the LGA 1151 socket type, and it has some really cool features on board, such as an M.2 slot and a USB Type-C port. So I decided that this would be the best pick for the build. Next up is the hard drive, and I decided that the minimum amount of space that I was willing to go for was 1 TB to fit any games that one would want, and I found a deal on the 1 TB Seagate Barracuda hard drive, and picked it up for just $24.99 after a $5 coupon at Micro Center. This drive should have all the space necessary for most people, and it also runs at 7200 RPM, meaning it'll run at decent speeds and shouldn't give you any problems. The next part in this build is the RAM. I picked up 8GB of G.Skill Aegis DDR4 memory for $58.99 from Micro Center as well. To get this price, I split a 16GB set of RAM with my friend over at Tech Always because he was doing a build for which he wanted 8GB as well. Now, even though this price is extremely high compared to a bit over a year ago, I bought it with him a little while ago, and since then the prices have risen much more. In any case, this part became the most expensive part in this gaming build by a slight margin. This RAM is fairly simplistic with a black and red color scheme covering it. It's DDR4 2400 MHz RAM, so it's the second slowest speed of DDR4 RAM after 2133 MHz, however it's the best that could be done in this particular build. And that's due not only to the price, but also because 2400 MHz is the highest speed supported by the G4560, so it has to get the job done. Next up is the part that brings the system to life, the power supply. For this part, basically all I wanted was a part that was cheap, yet also 80+ certified so that it's reliable. I was able to find just this, and I picked up the EVGA 450BT for just $9.99 off of Amazon after a $20 rebate. This 450 watt power supply provides all the power needed for this build, and is 80+ bronze certified, so it's the perfect fit. It is non-modular as well, but at this price that's completely acceptable. It does, however, have black case sleeves enhancing the aesthetic of this part, although in the case coming up that won't matter all too much. The next part is the GPU, and I was extremely happy to get the deal that I did for this part. To make this PC gaming capable, I picked up the MSI 2GB overclocked dual fan GTX 1050. This is a part of Nvidia's latest line of GPUs, and while it's the least powerful out of their options, it more than does the job for this build. I was able to pick this up from Micro Center for just $58.96 after an open box deal bringing the price down, then a $5 coupon, then a $10 rebate, and then Rocket League came free with it, which I was able to sell to a friend for another $10 as well. This is an incredible deal for this part, and it enables this PC to do some pretty acceptable gaming, as you'll see in a bit. Housing all of these parts, I was able to find an awesome deal on the Cooler Master K280 case from Micro Center. I picked it up for just $14.99 after a $20 discount on its original price and a further $25 rebate. This case isn't anything crazy, but it's nice for the price that I was able to get it at. It has an okay amount of space to work with concerning cables and parts, and it has a USB 3.0 port on its front I/O. It also came with an included fan, saving some extra costs. All in all, it gets the job done well. As you can see, the total of this build came out to $249.75. Achieving this price did take a few months due to inflated prices on some parts, yet I was eventually able to achieve it, and I think it's worth it to those who don't mind the deal hunting. I was also assisted a good amount by having a micro center nearby, and I recognize that. However, I still think that if you put enough effort into finding deals, it would be possible without that. So I came under my $250 budget by just 1/4. So I guess I could go buy, well, nothing really, I guess. Everything's too expensive these days. But anyway, now let's get into the benchmarks. For the benchmarks, I used 2 synthetic benchmarking tools as well as testing 6 popular games with varying settings at 1080p. And to capture data about frames per second, I used Fraps, and for the on-screen display, I used MSI Afterburner. So for the first synthetic benchmark, I tested 3D Mark Firestrike with default settings. Throughout this test, the average frames per second was about 23 FPS, varying throughout the various tests this benchmark performs. This PC ended up with a score of 5,704 on this test. Next, I used Unigine Heaven to benchmark this PC. I used the Ultra setting preset on the benchmark, and this PC maintained an average of 59 FPS and a minimum and maximum of 25 and 116 FPS respectively. The overall score on this benchmark was a 1492. Now onto the first game. I tested Counter-Strike Global Offensive on max settings. This PC achieved a solid 134 frames per second average, which isn't especially surprising as CSGO isn't a particularly hard game to run. It also has a minimum and maximum of 69 FPS and 296 FPS respectively. The next game I tested is one of my personal favorites as a soccer fan, Rocket League. I ran this game at max settings as well, and this PC was able to obtain an average of 86 frames per second. This smashes 60 frames per second, which is the maximum refresh rate of most monitors, so this is a nice score as well. It had a minimum and maximum score of 63 FPS and 123 FPS respectively. Next, I tested the popular and demanding GTA 5 on max settings. To my surprise, I was able to get a 50 frames per second average, which is completely playable to me and should deliver a decent gaming experience to most people. The minimum and maximum here were 36 FPS and 62 FPS respectively. The fourth game I tested is a classic, Doom. As this is a demanding game, I used the medium preset and was only able to achieve a 42 frames per second average. The game looked completely fine to me, however it wasn't able to reach that golden 60 FPS average. The minimum and maximum for this game were 20 FPS and 76 FPS. While this is a playable experience for me, it's up to personal preference for others. The fifth game I tested was PlayerUnknown's Battlegrounds, which is an extremely popular battle royale game which is pretty demanding as well. However, I was able to use high settings on this game and get an average of 43 FPS. Once again, it's a matter of personal preference considering whether that's okay or not, but if not, you can turn down the settings a bit to boost that average. The minimum and maximum here were 8 FPS and 52 FPS respectively. The last game I benchmarked with was Overwatch. While I don't play this game much myself, I know many people do, so I wanted to include it. This PC achieved an average of 86 FPS using the Ultra preset. This is more than enough as it breaks the 60 FPS even on Ultra settings by a lot. The minimum and maximum here was 62 FPS and 111 FPS respectively. So, I believe that this $250 gaming PC does in fact live up to its name because it hits or exceeds the standard 60 frames per second with reasonable settings in a lot of current games. And even though you're going to need to put in a little bit more effort now than you would have had to a year ago to get prices like I did, it's still worth it because it saves you a lot of money. For example, if I parted out this build on PC Part Picker, the base total comes out to around $600, meaning that I saved $350 just by doing some deal hunting. So if you're willing to do some deal hunting and deal with rebates, then a build like this would do you a lot of good. Not to mention, if you're looking to go into console gaming, then not only will a build like this offer you better performance, but it'll also save you a lot of money. because if you're looking to get the latest gen PlayStation or Xbox, that'll run you about $400 to $500, meaning that this build will be a lot cheaper. So in the end, if you're looking to go into PC gaming or console gaming, you might want to look into a build like this because it'll be a great alternative. Anyway, this has been Marko from TechStream, and I hope you found this video helpful in some way if you were looking for some motivation to build a PC like this, or if you wanted to see what could be if you tried to. But if you want to stay updated with me in between uploads, then I would highly recommend going to follow me on Twitter over at TechStream with 2 M's. But other than that, until next time, and I'll see you guys later. Bye.